Hi, I'm Jeff, product manager at Spirit of Satoshi. Also have Breno here, one of our lead AI developers. He'll be assisting with the presentation portion about the code assistant. But yes, we've been hard at work building some large language models, and we are a bit Bitcoin-centric AI company. Now, I guess a little bit of a background context. As you know, there's a lot of different models out there. Google, OpenAI, Meta are kind of the leading companies in the industry right now. But there are some inherent problems or challenges there. We've seen some very public-facing examples of that recently with kind of the catastrophe of Google's recent large language model release. But we are here to build some models that have a little bit different of a bias in them. Some people are concerned with having a model that has any kind of a bias and think that they should be completely neutral, but the reality is that's just not possible to do. Every training data set is going to have a specific bias in it. So our goal is to present a large language model that does not have a fiat bias baked in, but instead presents more of an Austrian economics, Bitcoin-centric emphasis to the world. But today, we'll give a little bit of a background about Code Satoshi, why we built it, and then also a more generic view of, first off, like what we were building before we got into that. So first off, can you guys see my screen?
We can. Looks great.
So, okay. Yeah, so we actually started building just our main Satoshi model, which is just I guess you could call it generic, but just a chat for learning and education about Bitcoin generally. We also released Satoshi GPT in the GPT store that you can go and find today. And then on our website, we have an open source fine-tuned Llama 2 13B that's powering that today. So this enables you to just go and ask any question about a bit more Bitcoin generally. It's really helpful for sending your normie friends to it who ask you questions like, you probably, if you've been in Bitcoin a while, been used to answering the same questions over and over again about Bitcoin, which is fine. Like orange pilling people is fun and exciting, but it's hard to scale. And so this is a really good tool that we can share with the world to help educate people about Bitcoin and doesn't tell them to, diversify and buy Ethereum and stuff like that. So Satoshi GPT, we also gave it some really cool capabilities, like you can ask it all types of questions about the Bitcoin price, estimating the halving, finding Bitcoin merchants, summarizing the news, building charts. It's some really cool stuff that we gave it the ability to do. So yeah, go ahead and hop in to our website and you can play around with that at spiritoftosatoshi.ai, or in the GPT store you can find Satoshi. But what we also found in this process is that, and with any LLM, is it requires you to gather a lot of data, but then also to build and structure that into a very clean data set that needs to be used to train the model and to iterate on. And that also requires some instruction fine-tuning and evaluation. Like you need to be able to actually assess if what you've done achieves a specific outcome, especially because the data sets involved are just so large that it's almost impossible to evaluate it with human eyes. You're getting to tens or hundreds of thousands of data points. You need to have an automated way to evaluate that. But this also requires human feedback as well, because any kind of automated evaluation is going to have some limitations to it. So what we wanted to do is be able to crowdsource the knowledge of the Bitcoin community. We call it proof of knowledge. And so what we built is a Lightning-enabled crowdsourcing LLM tool. So it allows Bitcoiners to come in to receive a data point. Often that's just a question and answer pair. And they can use their knowledge to help us curate and clean and annotate this data so that we can use that in training. And it's a really cool opportunity because it means that Bitcoiners all over the world can get involved and be able to earn sats for the knowledge that they've gained learning about Bitcoin, and in the process help us to build and fine-tune a model that helps share that knowledge with the world. And Bitcoin micropayments is really what's made that possible. I mean, there's other like AI data sourcing tools out there, but they have the inherent limitations of fiat, which is like cross-border payments and small transaction sizes. So leveraging Bitcoin, we've actually been able to make a tool that improves the knowledge of the Bitcoin model as well. What we did, though, is we actually started talking to a lot of companies about how they can leverage AI to help their company. And what we found specifically with the Liquid community is that there was a need there for developers. This is some of the feedback we got with our conversations. There's just a lot of, it's a complex industry, complex technology, and it's challenging for a lot of developers to get started, especially because it's just a newer technology. There's not extensive documentation or knowledge sharing that's out there yet because it's so new. And so a lot of the companies we talked to just expressed some of the challenges they were having. And so we found that there's a really good opportunity here to help developers in this space get started more quickly. And so that's kind of what started our desire to build a Liquid and code assistant tool. So yeah, it's very useful. It's been proven out there with tools like Copilot, which has been adopted heavily by developers, that these can be effective tools for saving time. And saving time is saving money, because engineers are one of the largest expenses for modern tech companies. But the problem is that there's not Bitcoin-centric code assistants out there. So if you go and ask existing large language models like Copilot or something, very specific questions about Bitcoin script, mini script, Liquid development, sometimes they'll do okay, but often they just hallucinate or fall flat on their face. They just make things up, or they just don't know the answers. And especially as this ecosystem grows, there'll be just a greater need for incoming engineers to get up to speed more quickly. And that's what we're hoping to do, is to help bring the thousands of new Bitcoin engineers that we'll need to enable hyper-Bitcoinization and give them the tools they need to do so quickly. Yeah, and then also in addition to the actual Miniscript code assistant, we also have developed a Liquid assistant, which helps to explain Bitcoin and Liquid related documentation. Instead of just spending time like trying to pour through lots and lots of documentation, here you could just quickly ask a question. There's some existing tools that Liquid developers use to interact with industry experts, but there's just limited time there for people to help out. And here's a tool that you can just ask at any time. And instead of having to search for documentation, you just ask your question and you can get the answer in minutes instead of the hours it might take to pour through documentation or wait for assistance. So we have those two. Yeah, we have the Liquid assistant and then the Code Satoshi. So right now we've built our first model that specializes in Miniscript. It can help you to write code, it can help you to correct code, and it can help to explain the code. And we'll demonstrate all that shortly. But this could obviously be expanded to additional languages, such as Bitcoin script specifically, or other things in the Bitcoin community that we could help with. For now, we just started with a Miniscript assistant. It's one of the more simple languages that we could start with. So yeah, let's hop into a demo real quick. I will share my screen. Okay, so this is our chat interface. As you see, we have a few different login methods. You can log in with your email, just simple, straightforward. We also have login with Lightning and also with Nostr. So we'll go ahead and demonstrate logging with Lightning. Obviously, you won't see me scanning here, but I'm just taking my Lightning wallet and scanning the QR code, clicking sign in. There we go. And yes, actually, everyone, we are live on Geyser doing a crowdfunding campaign. So you can pick up some cool Bitcoin trading cards or a new book that was written by AI, which is really cool. So go check that out. We're using those funds to actually help our contributors in the Lightning trading tool. So all those funds will be used to help train Satoshi. So go check it out. But here's our chat interface. Pretty straightforward, similar to existing large language models. Here's some suggested prompts. Here's your input field. On the left here, you can see we have our different models. So this is the main education model, Satoshi. And then we have our code assistant and our liquid technical assistant. So I'll just be shortly doing a short demo of the technical assistant, and then I'll have Breno demonstrate the code assistant. So yeah, so it's pretty straightforward. You just type in your prompt here. So let's just pick one of these. How do I perform a liquid swap? And shoot it out. So right now it's just going to the model. The model is going to generate a response. Right now we don't have streaming enabled, so we'll just take a second here for the whole response to generate and to fill. But what's cool is this is all pulling from existing documentation that we've sourced across the internet. And you'll see in the responses, it will actually provide you hyperlinks where you can go and learn more about the information provided and check that out. So here's a response. Tells you how to perform a liquid swap using liquid swap tool or GDK or LiquidX. And then here you can see the different source material. So I can just click on that and go check out where the information that I got it was. So here we're seeing the developer documentation portal about swaps. So I can go and dive in and read more without having to click through everything. It can just link you right there. So yeah, we have a few different prompts I give here. So for example, can you give me some technical instructions on how to unblind liquid confidential transactions? So same thing here, gives you a breakdown of how to do it, gives you some source material. And then we also have this feedback here. So we'd love to, anyone who's using the tool to give us feedback if there's some answers that are weak. We'd love to hear about that. And this will also assist, the Blockstream community at large to help us discover areas where documentation may be weak. So that can be addressed. Just another quick prompt here. This is kind of just a more random factoid, setting the precision metadata value. So it can even get into some of the detailed weeds here to help people out. Or just getting started, like, hey, I want to get started installing elements. Cool. It'll just give you a quick breakdown, give you instructions on how to do it, and let you know where else you can go. So yeah, that's the technical assistant. Let's hop over to Breno for the code assistant.
Hey guys, glad to be here. So let me share my screen here. Just a moment. I believe this one. Okay, can you see it, right? So just like the technical assistant, the code assistant, we use the same interface. So as you can see, there is some examples here, like for example, what is a miniscript policy? Some people want to learn about miniscript, and they okay, what is actually a policy? So there you can, for example, teach me some miniscript basics. So it can go from further down from the absolute basic level, it can build the knowledge with you. So let me share some that I already have here. So write a miniscript policy where 11 of 15 multisig can spend at any time, or an emergency key can spend after 4,030 to 320 blocks. This is basically what how Liquid works. It's a multisig 11 of 15, and after 30 days, which is roughly this size, it's that an emergency key can try to do something. So it brings you the miniscript policy. I study it, so I'm sure it works. Not only it works, but it compiles. So this is the policy, which is what is a policy is the behavior that you want the miniscript to have. But the miniscript, there is also the code, which is you can build a multi-sig in using SegWit. You can build it using Taproot. So you can have two different kinds of code that provide two codes that provides the same policy. So here it compiles to this code here, and it compiles also to this Bitcoin script. So if you know Bitcoin script, you can take a look to check. But if you don't know, you can learn Bitcoin script here. You can ask in plain English how to write something in miniscript, and now you can have something in Bitcoin script, so you can understand what's happening. And also there is a spending cost analysis, which if you are actually using in production, you might want to try some different things to have a lower weight unit. And in the end here, we have a really small, we are working on it to make it larger for these stream cases. But it's a flow chart where you can, it can become really clear what's happening. So there's 15 keys here. And here you cannot read it right now, but it's written. Let me see if I can, yeah, it's a little bit bigger. So it's check 11 out of 15. So any of these 11, you can use it, and then check 1 out of 2. So you have or this one, or this one, or these 11 ones, or this check 2 out of 2. So we need the emergency key older than 4,320 blocks. If you get any of those paths, okay, you can spend. If no, nothing. So you can, even though there is a really lots of things written down here, it's really hard to read what it's written because it's kind of verbose of how many keys. You can actually take a look here in the flow chart, and it's and now it's really clear what's happening. So for example, this is for Liquid, but let's say you don't know Liquid, you don't know miniscript, you're just starting, like, what is a hash lock and how can I create one in miniscript? So here it's an explanation. Hash lock's a type of smart contract mechanism, and there's different kinds of hashes that you can use for hash locks. And this is the function. There is a compile error because this is not the miniscript policy. This is just the function. This is an example miniscript policy. So you can pay if you have a key and also a hash. And so you have the miniscript code and the Bitcoin script code. And there is a flow chart here that is you can visualize what's going on. And you also can get something online. For example, someone writes something but it's not compiling and there's something wrong. So what is wrong with this miniscript policy? And you write it here, and it says here the end function actually only takes 2 parameters. There's 3 parameters here, so you can fix it using and a nested and inside an end. So this is the correct miniscript policy, the miniscript code, the Bitcoin script, and this is what it compiles to. Is essentially a 3 out of 3 multisig. So you can also get something and ask it to explain. So there is this really complex miniscript here, and okay, you ask to explain, and it says, okay, this is a hash time lock contract. Use the Lightning Network, both 3. This is a breakdown of the policy. So there's the key revocation, and then it goes inside every branch and explain everything. So basically, this is it. We still have some work to do. This is alpha version, but it already works really well. There's lots of use cases that it suits really nicely. And yeah, we just like the other one, we can copy this and use it to send to someone or or something, or then you can put thumbs up or thumbs down if you like it or not. So this is it.
Awesome. Thanks, Bruno. Yeah, like Bruno said, this is a kind of an alpha version. We'd love to get people to come in, try it out, help us figure out, what areas are good, what areas are weak, how we can improve it, and obviously expand to additional languages and protocols to help the Bitcoin community at large. So yeah, everyone who's here, we'd love to have you join us. Reach out if you want to participate in the alpha, and we'd love to get your feedback.
Nice.
Wanna...
Thanks for the presentation, guys.
Yeah,
does the community or anyone in the live stream have any questions for them?
Yeah, if you want also to test something, like is there a kind of mini script that you want to test, I can put it here and see if it works. Give an answer to write a specific policy.
I have a non-code related question.
Yeah.
That one of the things you mentioned early in the presentation was that it was able to make predictions, and you mentioned the halving date. Maybe we can play around with that in the code assistant. Just because it is kind of changing between the 19th and the 20th. I'm just kind of
okay. Oh, it's Satoshi GPT.
Yeah.
Let's see what he says.
All right. And does it do price predictions as well? Because that would
I actually don't know. I've never asked it that. I mean, I'm sure it's just gonna hallucinate something, but who knows?
Yeah. Maybe ask if let's see if ask it a specific question that is kind of relevant right now. Maybe how low will Bitcoin go in this current dip or something like that?
Okay.
Okay. When is the most opportune time to buy during the dip? I don't know. I'm just playing around.
Let's hold on. Let me get into it. One sec.
Yeah, just a heads up. Probably this won't work.
Yeah.
This is even too hard for humans. So for AI is probably going to just hallucinate something or say that it doesn't know. But yeah, it's fun to play with this as well.
Yeah, I didn't mean to derail the conversation or anything. It's just I thought it would be a little fun to experiment with it.
Yeah, it's fun.
Hey, there you go. Predicting the price is akin to forecasting the path of a leaf in the wind. That's pretty funny. Pretty true, though. Yeah. Who knows, right?
Okay, so it's just being,
that's good.
it's just like acting like your mother or something. Like, oh, you could be trading Bitcoin.
Some good advice, though. Don't focus on the short term.
Yeah.
Look at the fundamental value.
Okay, so maybe ask it more specifically about the halving date. Like, what is the let's see, yeah.
So it's pulling some data right now.
Okay.
Okay. You said
what
19th
about
or 20th? Right?
Ask it a specific time, or you know what I mean? Like what? Never mind. I guess it gives you the block.
Gives you the block estimate.
Yeah.
Not bad.
Another question. You mentioned the inherent bias in all of when you're dealing with LLMs. So
yeah.
So,
for example,
yeah, like recently with Gemini, yeah, would be a good example of that inherent bias. So how have you guys trained on the back end the Satoshi AI to be non-fiat? Is there
Yes. So
like a specific strategy there, or what?
great question. Yeah, so it's actually been the greatest challenge we have faced because so we don't have the resources to train a foundation model just because that requires, I mean, literally millions of dollars to build. Even a small foundation model is what they're called. Is building it from scratch, basically, right? So that's what OpenAI has done. That's what Meta's done, and that requires a very, very significant amount of resources, lots and lots of GPUs, and huge training data sets. So what we've have instead done is taken an existing foundation model and then performed continued pre-training and fine-tuning on that model. And one of the challenges is that a lot of that bias is kind of baked into the foundation model based on the previous training data. A lot of that comes from just the internet at large, Wikipedia, books, YouTube transcripts, etc. And so it basically just inherits the general bias in the data sets used to create the foundation model. So the challenge is getting that out. So what we've done is compiled our own data sets, much of that coming from what's called the Nakamoto repository. So if you go to our site, there's a link where you can go and view that. If you go to the Get Involved, actually, let me share my screen real quick. Show you. So here on our site, if you click on the Get Involved tab, submit data. So this will take you to the Nakamoto repository. This is just a repository of all the Bitcoin works, whether it's a website, an article, a book, video. This has been contributed from the community. So this will be a lot of the resources that were used in that. Also, we partnered with Mises.org, and they shared with us their extensive repository of Austrian economic works, which is fantastic. And so we tried just initially doing some fine tuning, which is to create some QA pairs based on these sources and then do a fine tuning on the model, but it just wasn't sufficient to remove some of those biases. So we actually had to perform what's called continued pre-training, which is where you go back into the deeper layers of the model and you just train it to predict the next word using just plain text. So just chunks of plain text data from the sources. And that has really helped kind of take it to the next level and get some of those biases out. But essentially, lots and lots of data that is aligned with the bias that you're trying to train into the model and structuring that and trying to train the model out. Brenna, you have any other input there?
No, I believe this you summed up really well.
Good.
Yeah, it's interesting. It parallels with the whole orange pilling meme, right? You have to kind of forget your preconceived notions, and relearn things 3, 4, 5 times to really grok and understand Bitcoin. So it's funny how even with this AI language model that it's essentially the same strategy here.
Yeah, actually, going deeper on this in language models, there's a huge overlap. Deep learning networks, they first appear to mimic how our brains work. So, and nowadays that this started on the 50s. So it's really old, since we call like neural networks, because they build a neuron. What they call a neuron is a simulation of what they think a neuron do, more or less. So right now, when we have these larger models, they use these models also in neurology science. They try to the engineers, they try to learn neurology to apply new concepts to the large language models and other kinds of models. And some scientists goes backwards as well. They try to make some tests in models and in neural networks, and to see if it makes sense, because it's really easier. Like, you have a computer, you can do whatever you want. You can like do a brain surgery, a brain scan, and it's way cheaper than doing this in an actual human or human being. So there's these overlaps, and for the forgetting phase is a really hard thing. It's a really hot topic right now. People actually don't know how to make a model actually forget. They don't have a closed answer for this. Everyone in the world right now, be the person working on OpenAI or on Meta or whatever company they are working on, they do not have a way to make the model forget. So sometimes it memorizes something, and it could always be there, and sometimes it appears out of nowhere when you're not expecting. Of course, you can try to steer the model to what you want as most you can. This is what we are doing, and but there's no safe guarantee right now that the model actually forgets some wrong information that it learned before.
Is this what people like attribute to degradation? Like, of course, I've been following the AI space since ChatGPT was released, and a lot of people are suggesting that it's gotten dumber, or it's not as powerful, or it is this due to it falling back to its like quote unquote original memories, or those kind of what you described in this scenario?
Yeah, not exactly. Can be, but the thing is, a neural network it's a highly complex thing that we don't know how to predict exactly what is going to come out. There's lots of these individual neurons. So when you hear a model is 7B, there's 7 billion neurons. And these neurons are connected to each other in lots of different ways. And so when you ask the model something, it goes through this network of neurons, and it spits an answer. And so when it degrades, it means that the model, the performance metrics that they have are not great anymore. So it's really hard. Like, how can you make sure that the model is good or not when you're talking about language? When you're talking about like doing a specific task is really easy. You can, if it achieves this task and how well it can achieve it's okay. But when it's language, you can do almost anything. It's really an open thing. So you have some metrics, for example, trying to make a school test, for example, answer a test about mathematics, about history, about common knowledge, or something like this, and evaluate with humans, which is really hard. And so when it degrades, it means that these metrics are getting worse. So sometimes they can be forgetting. Sometimes they have some unexpected things. Just like, for example, when a human learns about Bitcoin, it starts to learn about lots of other stuff together with Bitcoin. So there's lots of people that learn about Bitcoin, and soon after they became Christian, and they start a family, and they change their worldview, and they start being carnivore, eating only meat, because sometimes one information in one place can change how some person can see other kinds of information. And this can happen with AI also. Every time that we are training, adding more information, we can sometimes forget or corrupt the past information that the model already have, or maybe even change it, giving a whole new perspective that we were not predicting it would have. Make sense?
It was super interesting. After actually just recently we did another training experiment and asked it some questions that we didn't necessarily train it on, but it surprisingly answered very well, even though we couldn't find anything in our data set that was actually associated with that topic. So it is,
But it was
that's why it's a very iterative process, because some of it is more art than science, and you really have to experiment and just see what happens. So it's often very surprising.
This was with the Bitcoin language models that y'all are working
on?
on?
Yeah, we're working on a new model, another version that we're hoping to release actually into this month. So
yeah, let me give you an example, a quick example. So if you train the model in a large data, so the model will have, for example, will know how to make a bomb, and you go to ChatGPT and you ask how do I make a bomb, and it's not going to say, oh, this is not safe, I cannot tell you, and blah blah blah. So why that is? Because there is the training, and then there is the fine-tuning step where the OpenAI team try really hard to keep the model, let's say, safe. So if we train more and try to give the model other kinds of fine-tuning, for example, explaining some things that the idea of safe is not there. Like, for example, I explain how to, I don't know, kill a chicken to make lunch. So if the model understands this as unsafe because you're killing a living being, it's and then you train it to always give an answer how to kill a chicken to make lunch, for example. In the end, the model can have this concept of, okay, I don't need to be that safe anymore. I don't need to be to only give safe answers. So even though I'm not saying about anything about bombs, just by instructing, making the model, training the model to provide information that it can consider unsafe, it maybe releases it to provide other unsafe information as well.
Wow, I don't know if this was this is glossed over, this aspect of AI language models, but I mean, I was still under the assumption that things were very A to B, input output, that there wasn't any kind of intuitive learning happening in the background. But it sounds, I don't know if you guys can go deep into that example you gave where you were talking with the Bitcoin language model and you asked it, I'm assuming, about like adjacent cultural references like carnivore or whatever. And it gave you that's how I would have done the experiment too. And so I'm just thinking out loud here, but so yeah, I'm assuming you asked it some culturally, similar questions, and it gave you information that is already kind of propagating in the Bitcoin space, like like I was saying, in terms of religiosity and diet and health.
Yeah. So, for example, I'm trying to remember what the precise one was, but I believe it was about soy or something. It was like about, is soy healthy or something like that. And it answered exactly like you'd expect a Bitcoiner to. And then I said, I don't remember us ingesting sources about soy. And so we went and checked, and I think there was 2 examples in the entire data set out of, tens and tens of thousands of them. And so surprisingly, and they weren't very specific either. So it's just very surprising that it was able to inherit such an aligned worldview with so little training data.
Almost none. It was like offhand remarks in an article that was part of the resource base or whatever. and
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
pulled from that. Interesting.
And so
And
sometimes it can learn even from just one or two examples, which is
yeah,
generally speaking, you'd want to have thousands of examples about soy if you wanted it to, answer stuff about soy. So
Yeah, we have this idea that it's just input and output because they answer like what's being trained on, but actually it kind of makes an internal model of what's going on. For example, in our space we have three dimensions, right? We have length, we have height, and depth. So we have three dimensions, and we usually think about we it's hard for us to understand more than three dimensions. But when we give something to the model, to a language model, it breaks into tokens, which is a word or a smaller part of a word. For example, if I gave the word cars, it's two tokens. One token is car, and another token is S, which is so there's two tokens, and then it makes the process of tokenizing. It transforms this token into a vector of almost 800 dimensions. So the model creates and tries to understand dimensions of these tokens, but it's not spatial dimensions. It's semantic dimensions. So it's dimensions of meaning. So, for example, there's a classical explanation that if you get the token for the token king and subtract mathematically the king minus man plus woman equals queen.
right.
So you have this. This is just an example. It's not exactly like this, but this is helps understanding that it transforms. It gets a word or a text and transforms into several vectors with 800 dimensions, and it tries to capture everything there is to capture of meaning inside these dimensions, so it can as they relate to each other. And so sometimes there is something that is not actually written there, we didn't give as input, but it learns because of the relations with other tokens.
Well, thanks for going into the
the weeds.
Yeah, in the weeds of things. I
Oh,
mean,
that's good.
I'm quite new to the. I mean, I've never looked up exactly how, behind the scenes, the tokenization process works, or just yes, I had an idea that these language models were replicating brain synapses and networks, but I was always skeptical of how much like intuitive creative thinking is happening, because even the example we all use, it sounds like it's pulling just from it's still pulling from the data set, but you were surprised that it elevated some things within the resource data or whatever, because they were trained on so much more. But this brings up ethics and a whole load of questions with Pandora's box.
Yeah. Well, that also is that's an important point, because it also means that we don't want AI to be completely captured by certain organizations that have biases or belief systems that are antithetical to ours, right? So we want to have other alternatives. We want to have a competition in the marketplace, so that it's not just completely controlled by these entities.
For sure, and I think that's playing out in real time, right?
Yeah.
With what's the X version, Grok, and then Google's Llama, if that's correct, and then
Meta's doing Llama.
Yeah.
And Mistral AI is another one out of Europe that's doing some good open source work. So
yeah, I had an idea when we're talking about this. It would be funny to create a language model that's like incredibly Bitcoin toxic. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like the personification of a Bitcoin maximalist. Kind of like how Grok is, how they've tried to market Grok in the space right now is that it's a little bit more silly. It's lighthearted.
Yeah.
But with the understanding that it's not going to be censored as heavily. But yeah. Do y'all have ideas for? I mean, maybe don't want to spill the beans here in a public forum, but I'm sure you'll have lots of ideas on what you can do in the future in the Bitcoin space.
Yeah, toxic mode is what we're calling it.
Oh, okay. So yeah.
It's not here yet, but yeah, it's a great idea. I agree.
Cool. Well, I don't think there's any more questions in the chat. We kind of went on a tangent here at the end, but really fascinating stuff. And thank you for both joining and letting us.
Yeah, just quickly circle back. Yeah, we'd love to have everyone come out to our website, spiritofsatoshi.ai. Give Satoshi a try. If you're interested in joining the alpha for either the manuscript assistant or the technical assistant, please reach out to us on our website or on Twitter, and we would love to get you access and get your feedback on that.
Cool. I think as a follow-up here, may be useful to create a thread on Bold 2, and then people who watch this, later on can go there and can ask you questions.
Absolutely, let's do it.
About the new toxic mode that's coming. All right, guys.
Awesome.
Thanks for joining.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining. We'll see you guys.
Thanks, guys. Bye.